My name is Shelley Hart, and I'm a longtime radio air personality and MC in Seattle. Like so many of us, I spend a lot of time in traffic, so I like to take a lot of back roads to get to where I'm going to go, especially to the radio station. And along the way, I see things, and people, and I just never really thought much about it before. It just kind of went along my way and figured I was just, minding my own business. I guess to me it was just obvious. These people are crazy. Such as life, events happen, and sometimes there are those things that just, drop you to your knees and change your perception and outlook on things and make you want to look a little bit deeper. It's not so much what I see, which is obvious with so many of these folks. I mean, it's just, in many cases, some sort of a mental disorder or behavioral health issue of sorts. It's what I don't see in my day-to-day, or that we don't talk about, or why can't we catch and heal or perhaps help manage up early on? I think it's natural for so many of us to assume that, hey, they've always been this way. Well, I get a feeling that's not necessarily true. I mean, we don't know their stories. Maybe for a lot of years they harbored a secret because they were afraid to talk about it. Things like schizophrenia or post-traumatic stress disorder, or maybe social anxiety or bipolar or panic disorders or depression. Could be a coworker, could be a family member that you remember. It could be your kids, could be you. This is something that we have to talk about, and treatment needs to be more accessible and readily available, because you really never know someone's story until now.
Good morning. It's the new Warm 106.9. Today's hits, yesterday's favorites. It's Shelley Hart here to help get you through your workday. I know it's a Monday. We'll get through this.
He was the first to call me Auntie. This is Chad's legacy, ending the stigma of mental illness.
There it is.
Wow.
Sal. Sal's in here.
Of course, we should preface this because someday Sal will be watching this video. So, Sal, this is a temporary name because we don't know if it's a boy or a girl. We chose not to know that. So we decided to give it a very generic name. Give you a very generic name.
You're Sal.
I was pregnant and we called him Sal because we didn't want to know whether he was a boy or a girl. And it was in July, on July 16th. We went to the hospital and he was born in an hour and a half. So when he was ready, he was really ready. And I just remember his little teeny cry. Just how really perfect and sweet it was.
He had an interest in the concept of flight as a really little kid, and really gravitated toward the Blue Angels. It was just thunderous, but this little 3-year-old toddler was just captivated by these incredible machines just shooting across the sky, and we knew at that point that there was a real interest towards something bigger than just kind of the typical building blocks kind of thing.
We were having a challenge with one of his teachers because Chad was very, in his mind, always going, always thinking. He wasn't always paying attention to what she said, and maybe part of it was he was being creative, and maybe part of it was he was bored, because that would be Chad too. So she was pretty insistent that we put him on some medications for ADHD or whatever. We were like, no, it's just he's a creative kid. He pays attention. It's just that it might not be to what you want. We went to the open house at the school. The students had all their art up on the walls. The teacher came out and said, see, this is what I'm talking about. His disobedience, this is what I'm talking about. And I said, what? And I looked up and here's Chad's, and she goes, look at it. It's on a different color of paper than all the rest. I instructed him to put it on this color of paper and he did not.
She went down the line. Look, white paper, white paper, white paper, not white paper.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I said, okay, I'll talk to him. And after the open house, I said to Chad, hey, buddy, I saw your art hanging up in the hallway. And he goes, yeah, did you like it? I said, yeah, I noticed that yours was a different color than everyone else's, and your teacher was a little upset about that. He goes, yeah, wasn't that great. It made mine stick out.
In the early parts of high school, we did wind up having him seen by a psychologist because we wanted to figure out if there was something maybe getting in his way, because it was so difficult for him to track projects. What came out was, when we met with the psychologist afterwards, she said, you know, chances are in that respect, he's probably going to be the smartest guy in the room.
She just said his mind is just, he's over here and everybody else is here, and he's not waiting for them to catch up. That's why he's not paying attention, or why they think that he gets everything. He just doesn't need to tell you that he gets it.
A year, maybe 2 years into high school, he had kind of developed an interest in mechanical engineering. Not just flying the planes, but figuring out types of propulsion that might be used even in space travel. And he was trying to conceptualize ideas that would make it feasible to go greater distances, like interstellar. He was trying to picture in his mind what it would be like to be able to generate a very tiny black hole in the front of a ship that would create a pull toward that black hole, and then just create and collapse just ahead of the ship to create kind of an artificial tow rope that would accelerate a ship. And he figured if it was done right, it could be made to tow a ship fairly efficiently, perhaps even faster than the speed of light. That was his dream gig. He wanted to go to work for NASA to try to figure those things out. There was always a focus issue, even in elementary school, but always found a way to kind of come through in the end. It became more of a problem kind of midway through high school, and at that point, he did wind up getting put on some ADHD meds. He struggled in high school and wound up with a fairly low cumulative GPA, but blew up his SAT.
Yeah.
Blew it up. And we're looking at the two going, buddy, what's going on here? Thank you for blowing up your SAT, but college is going to be tough.
Yeah. He had come home from work, and he said, "Mom, I need to talk to you, and can we please talk in private?" And I said, "Okay." So we went in the bedroom and shut the door, and he said, "I am having problems, Mom, and I need your help." And I said, "What's going on, buddy?" And he said, "I'm hearing voices and I'm seeing things, and it's making me scared." And I said, "What do you mean seeing things?" And he said, when I drive, I see creatures on top of buildings and they follow me. And it makes it so that it's hard for me to concentrate." And he said, "And I can hear them talking to me and I can't sleep." And I said, "Oh my gosh, Chad, how long has this been going on?" And he goes, "Well, I've been hearing them, but now I'm starting to see them and I'm scared." It was scary for him to tell anybody, because clearly he was frightened by that. And also just by asking me, could we talk in private so nobody else could hear? And scary as a mom to have your child talk about those things. And
when your kid has a fever, or they've got a knee that for some reason is really sore and it's got a big red spot on it, you look at it, go, okay, let's see a doctor, let's get this fixed. But when a child comes to you, say, "I hear voices and I see things," it puts you on your heels, because I don't know what to do about that. I guess we see a doctor.
Todd and I had a conversation about, we need to push Chad, and he's Is he going to go back to school? Is he not going to go back to school? He's working. Seems like he's sort of floundering. And so
He needs to pick himself up and move forward, get something done.
He came home from work, and I had a coming to Jesus talk with him about how he needed.
We did.
Yeah.
You weren't the only bad guy in the room.
So, he came home, and we were talking about that he needed to, figure out what he was going to do. You need to either go back to school or you need to move out. That's it. Those are your two choices, buddy. You need to do one of those two things and get on with your life. You don't want to be living in our basement forever. And then he lost it. And he said he had, been hearing all these voices and that he felt like he was going to kill himself. And so we,
he wanted to get up. Yeah, he wanted to get up from the couch and go kill himself at that moment.
Yeah. So we wrapped him in a blanket and put him in the car. Todd, I said, we're going to the hospital. I know the system. I'm in healthcare, and I know how things work. And I know that we're going to take him to the hospital, and Chad is going to be Chad, and he's not going to want to bother anyone. And he's going to say, yeah, I'm probably okay. And they're going to send us home, and he's not going to make it through the night. So on the way to the hospital, I coached him on what to say. I coached him on the fact that, buddy, you have to tell them you're not going to live through the night, or they won't take you into the hospital. You have to tell them what you said, that you're going to jump off the bridge, and you're not going to make it if they send you home. And you have to tell them that, or they won't help you. So he was in the hospital. He was there for a week. They thought that it was his ADHD medication that had caused a psychosis and this depression. And so they gave him antidepressants, and they took him off the ADHD medication. He came home, and 4 days later, he was in the living room and had a total panic attack, became suicidal again, was hearing all these voices, felt like he couldn't breathe. He felt like his heart was going to explode. We had to call the medics. He was totally inconsolable. One of the medics said, is he on any medications? And I said, yeah, he's on sertraline and risperidol, which is what they gave him for the voices. And I very clearly remember the medic going, oh, he's got schizophrenia, and rolling his eyes. And at that point, no one had told us that he had schizophrenia. And that's when we started looking up what that meant, not having known anybody who had schizophrenia before, and always thinking that it was sort of those people that were way out on the fringe, way out on the edge, and not knowing it could be somebody like Chad. I remember walking around with him on one day when he could get out on pass off of the locked unit that he was on, and we were walking around the grounds at the University of Washington, and he said, Mom, I'm really worried that I won't be able to ever work at NASA. What if they know that I was in the hospital? Even when he was sick, and at one of his lowest points, he was still thinking about that someday that's where he was going to go, and someday he was going to, make that difference, and that was his goal. There was a knock on the door, and I opened the door, and there were 3 police officers there. And I remember one of the police officers saying, we have Chad. I was thinking, well, he has schizophrenia. This is a part of our lot, right? People with schizophrenia get arrested. Not knowing. And he said, no, we have Chad's body. I think the stigma with mental illness and things that are going on in your head is so strong that it impacts even your relationship with your family and those that you trust the very most, so that you don't want to say anything until it's really bad, until you just can't deal with it anymore. And I think that thought around somehow mental illness means mental weakness, and that somehow you should be able to deal with it, like if you were just tougher, or if you were smarter, or if you were stronger, that this wouldn't be happening to you.
There's a real lack of education for the general public as to what mental illness is. The image of mental illness that I think we all kind of generally have is something that is very unpredictable, and because of that unpredictability, it's unsafe. So when you see somebody that's struggling with a mental illness, kind of the reaction is to perhaps recoil just a little bit. We all grow up with that stigma, so when it starts developing inside of you like it did with Chad, he already understands the stigma. He understands that more than he understands the disease that he's battling. It creates a twofold problem. The person with the disease doesn't reach out for help early enough, and the community around him isn't real well equipped to deal with that request for help or the obvious need for help. The education is really the key to at least damage that stigma, which is the short-term goal, but I think we can do a lot better.
People have to realize that it's a disease, that it's not a choice, it's not a weakness, it's not something anyone would choose to have. It's something that you would want to do everything to get over if you could. And because we don't treat it as a disease right now, we don't treat it like heart disease or diabetes or cancer, we expect the person to sort of get over it and learn how to deal with it. You don't ask somebody with cancer to learn how to deal with cancer. You get them help and you get them medication and you do surgery and you take the cancer out. And we don't know how to do that with the brain yet. And we don't know how to do that with mental illness. And it is the same. It is a disease.
Well, recently we have woken up, eaten, and some of us went to school. Not me and Jake. We skipped because we didn't have to. But anyways, today is the last day of school for the summer.
Serious?
We're going to pick up Corey and Grady and Macy. Next year they're all going to be in middle school.
They'll be in middle school, finally back in school with you, huh?
Yep. Oh, no way. I'm sorry. I'll be in high school.
You're moving on.
Suckers.